Joanna Lannister loved her children. Every true mother treasured their children, more than life itself. Any woman who cared not a whit for their offspring was no matriarch in her eyes, but a wench and a craven, something to be reviled and spit upon. A parent had a duty to those that came after them, and a mother's duty was to her children, always her children. They were Joanna's light, her life, her everything, second only to her husband himself, and only then because she'd grown up with Tywin as a little girl. She would live for them, fight for them, die for them if she must. Never before had but her children. As such, she adored the twins just as much as she did the babe in her arms. Stubborn Jaime, still struggling with his letters and only just now learning to hold a sword, yet wide-eyed with wonder when he saw the bundle in her eyes. Sullen Cersei, petulant at no longer being the center of her mother's world, yet curious about her new brother all the same. "Blue eyes," he murmured, "that's new." "What of it?" Cersei gave a sulk, heedless of the look it garnered her. "They might yet change." Joanna offered Jaime an indulgent smile. "Would you like to hold him then?" Jaime jolted, but shook his head fiercely. "But I might drop him. Don't be such a coward." Of course, Cersei wasn't going to take that lying down. Anything Jaime couldn't or wouldn't do was something she absolutely had to. She wanted to be the center of attention, and if that meant holding this burbling infant, then so be it. Naturally, Joanna had anticipated this, and as such when Cersei pushed her brother out of the way, she offered little Naruto to her gladly. It was a good thing for her to take an interest in her brother after all, and she would gladly give the twins the nudge they needed to accept their sibling. They were family looked after one another. "Careful now," she instructed as young Cersei cradled the infant in her arms, "watch his head." "I have him, mother." Cersei tossed her head. "I don't see what all the fuss is about." Then the babe reached up and did the unthinkable. Her daughter blinked, once, twice. Finally she dared a small smile. "He is rather cute, I suppose," she mumbled weakly. "For a babe," Jaime crowded in at her elbow. "Quite the grip he's got." Joanna would forever vividly recall her first memory of them interacting with one another, of watching, spellbound, as the babe clutched at Cersei's outstretched finger and cooed softly. That drew a rare smile from her daughter, and she even unbent enough to deign a giggle. In that moment, their eyes, there was no distinction to be made between the three of them. They were her children. She would love them until the end of her days and beyond. Any child that came after this one would be just as loved, so she swore, by the old gods and the new. Tywin kept insisting they name him Nathaniel at least. Naruto was too foreign a name for a Lannister, he said. It won't command respect, he said. Eventually she yielded, if only in part. Let this rotten world call him what they willed. If her beloved was so keen on calling him that, then so be it. Joanna had sworn she would always call him by the name she'd given him. It just felt right somehow. When the Meisters had tried to take him from her, she'd refused then, just as she refused them now. She no longer trusts them. But she'd trust family, Jaime and Cersei. They'd look after him, even after she was gone. She couldn't be there for him forever. But his siblings, Cersei and Jaime, and any future children Joanna herself had, would be there for him. Naruto, yes, it was just as she'd said before. One day she knew this boy would change the world. Some say Tywin Lannister does not felt fear. Perhaps that was true, perhaps not. Who can say? As Lord Paramount of the Westerlands, head of House Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock and Warden of the West, Lord Tywin was certainly made of sterner stuff than the average Westerosi noble. He had taken a house once known for its weakness and made it strong once again. Not through generosity or honor or foolish kindness, but through ruthless pragmatism. He was, after all, the head of his house. Naturally, the head of the house must stand strong, lest they appear weak. It's the family name that lives on. It's all that lives on. Not personal glory or honor, but family. His father had been weak in matters of the realm, he would not be. Those who had come to think of the Lannisters as weak were swiftly disproved of such notions. If a debt were owed to him, one must repay it. If one did not, well, just ask the Rains and Tarbecks. If any were yet living, they would loudly attest to his ... intensity. The bards had even composed a quaint song of the massacre. A tragic but necessary step in furthering the foundation of their house, while eradicating those who would oppose them. The Lannister name would remain long after he returned to the dirt. The legacy left behind by him, his children, and his children's children. At present he had little hope for Jaime or Cersei. Far too interested in preening than statecraft or the business of Casterly Rock. Perhaps that wasn't fair him. They were only children after all. But neither had proven themselves overmuch in the last 9 months. Thus it was here with his third child that his hopes lay, hope and all the soul-crushing fear that came with it. Yes, Tywin Lannister knew what fear was, he understood it, respected it. Push! He knew that fear now. Felt it coil in his gut like a hideous serpent threatening to strangle him as he watched his lady-wife writhe on her birthing bed. Each cry ripped through Casterly Rock, a knife through his heart, every gasp a painful blow to his soul. And there was nothing he could do for her. For all his might and wealth, Tywin was as powerless as any other man in this, weak as any other. He could only stand by and hold her hand while she swore and spit and snarled. Joanna, the light of his life, the one woman in this world that he would yield to, his everything. Without her, his life would be rudderless, his heart hardened. She was every bit a lioness of the Lannisters. It was not pain that made her weep, but concern for the babe in her belly. "He's coming, beloved!" The frantic desperation in her voice unmanned him. "I can feel him!" For all his wit, Tywin found himself struck speechless by her ferocity. He saw the strain etched into her face, the pain as that old doddering fool of a Maester coaxed her through her contractions. Yet for all her suffering, Joanna had adamantly refused milk of the poppy or any such medicine, though she bled and bore her suffering with a tenacity few possessed, though she gritting her teeth as her body worked tirelessly to usher this tiny new soul into the world. He couldn't help but fear for her. Golden hair hanging like a wreath about her pale, sweaty face, her crimson dress hiked up to the knees. The child was nearly here, or so she claimed. He was inclined to believe her. Gods, so much blood. A man's past can haunt him. The smallest of actions often have the most lasting of consequences. Cersei and Jaime had been a hard birth for her. This was harder still. For all the blood and battle he'd seen, the sight of a child being born, his child, still unnerved him. Yet he couldn't bear to tear himself from his wife's side, even as her grip promised to crush every bone in his right hand. He grimaced against it and willed himself not to dwell on dark thoughts, but pleasant ones. At least Arizin, a rare moment of sanity, hadn't object to Pycelle's presence for Joanna's labor. With him here at Casterly Rock, she might yet survive. Or she might die. A sharp and sudden squall arose all at once, startling husband and wife alike. "It's a boy, my lord!" For all his age, Pycelle proved his worth and loyalty 10 times over. In less than a minute he'd severed the umbilical cord and wrapped the wailing babe in clean linen. Then his bearded face turned down and pensive for some reason as he gazed at the child's face, for reasons Tywin didn't understand. The boy looked healthy. He certainly sounded healthy enough by his cries. No, he decided he didn't like the look the Grand Maester was giving him, as if he were a freak of some sort. An abomination. Nothing could be further from the truth. He was not a dwarf, and Tywin saw no extra fingers or toes. He was, for all intensive purposes, just a boy. "Red orbs." No doubt the Maester meant the words for himself, but Tywin's keen hearing caught it immediately. "An ill omen. What are you on about?" But Joanna was already rising, reaching for the newborn with the single-minded intensity that so defined her as a mother, and he never had his answer. Concern for his wife won out over suspicion, and he released her hand to place a steadying hand against her back. She swatted it aside and propped herself up on her elbows of her own accord, drawing a chagrined smile from the lion. "Let me see him, Pycelle." It began as a groan, but with every syllable she grew stronger. "Let me see my son." If it would please my lady," the Grand Maester doddered. Perhaps a wet nurse would be his wife would have naught of it. "Give him to me." Before such devotion, even the Maester faltered, and the boy was soon within her arms, mewling softly. "Look at him, Tywin," she crooned, beckoned. "Look at your son." The Lord of Casterly Rock did just that. Bright blue eyes squinted up at him. None of this red orbs nonsense Pycelle had been on about. Perhaps old age was catching up to the Grand Maester. Regardless, he had served his purpose and helped to bring him into the world unharmed. So it was then. A night of passion so many moons ago had given birth to a son. The birthing had been rough, but Joanna had survived. Somehow. Even now he watched her clutch the child close, cooing softly at him as only a mother could. In moments the boy was nursing, sucking lustily against her breast. She would live, Pycelle assured him. If she hadn't, he shuddered at the thought, without his wife know. Tywin's mind rebelled with a violent shudder and refused to even consider it. He was fond of his children, inasmuch as man like him could be fond of them, but his cold heart had only ever truly warmed for Joanna. Seeking to distract himself, the lion dismissed Pycelle with an errant wave. "Thank you for your service, leave us." The Maester glanced at him. "But my lord, this is an ill omen." "Did I stutter?" A growl etched itself into his voice. "Out!" With a sputter that wasn't entirely feigned this time, the Grand Maester tottered toward the door. But his gaze lingered, drawn once more to the boy's face. Why, what was it about his son that perturbed him so? Tywin resolved to ask him at a later date, but now was not the time for such thoughts. No sooner had the door shut than he turned his attention back to the boy. "I suppose we need to think of a name," he murmured. "I've already thought of one," Joanna hummed, rocking the babe softly. A golden brow rose in mild consternation and surprise both. "Have you now, without telling me?" So she told him her choice gladly, and he knew at once that there would be no swaying her. Of course, he still tried anyway. "You can't be serious." He nearly guffawed outright at the news. "With a name like that, he'll be a laughingstock. Tell me you're joking." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life, my beloved." Joanna's cheek nuzzled against that of their son's with tender care, cradling him as though he might shatter into glass at any moment. "I saw him in a dream, Tywin. He spoke to me, told me his name. He'll do great things someday." The conviction in her voice unnerved the lion, shook his resolve. A dream? Nonsense. Perhaps she was still out of sorts from the birthing. How could a boy who'd only just been born tell his mother what he wanted to be named? It was the stuff of snarks and grumpkins, and he believed none of it. What manner of magic was that? Nonsense, utter nonsense. But for the sake of her pride, he leashed his retort, if only just. "Did he now?" Tywin rolled his eyes. "I suppose he read your palm as well. Careful, dear." His wife clicked her tongue at him playfully, her free spirit already beginning to recover in the absence of Pycelle. "I may be weak at the moment, but I'll repay every bit of your snark." In the end, the choice was taken from Tywin, and Joanna's was often her wont named their son after the dream she'd had. In his darker moments, he would look back at this moment, this day, and dwell at it, somewhat ruefully in the days to come. An unorthodox name, perhaps, and not necessarily the one he'd intended to give the boy at first, but it would do. He sounded it out now, testing the newfound name on his lips as he gazed down at the infant swaddled in cloth. Considering him, his odd blue eyes, that faint golden wisp of hair, those peculiar cheeks. "Naruto, is it?" And the boy smiled. He would change the world. His little brother was a vicious fighter. Jaime Lannister realized this terrible truth relatively late in his childhood, and that was his mistake. By the time he understood what Nathaniel Naruto truly was, the boy had nearly become his equal in the art of the blade. Oh yes, his baby brother was good. Very good. Better than good even, he had the potential to be something extraordinary and dangerous. The great ones always were. Some were born with a silver spoon in their mouths. Others were good at fighting, steel sang in a clenched fist hand and daggers danced in another, a deadly dervish of death in which Jaime found himself the center of. Sparks flew through the air as their weapons collided. Once, twice, thrice now, parry. Riposte, thrust. He could scarcely deflect, much less evade those nasty little knives. Nathaniel drove at him again and again and again, keeping him on the back foot, forcing him a corner. They were using live steel today, and he almost found himself regretting it, if only because his dear sibling wasn't afraid to take a few nicks to face for a win. He'd done it before. Ladies liked scars. Naruto would have more than a few by the time he reached adulthood. Blast, but those daggers were quick. He shunted one aside, hissed as his brother cut his shoulder beneath his tunic and lashed out, delivering a brutal right hook in rebuttal. Naruto took it with a grunt, stepped back, wiped a thin line of blood from his lip and grinned. Then he came at him again. Bloody relentless, Jaime considered himself no slouch with the sword. He was skilled himself, but swordsmanship was where his martial talents both began and ended. His baby brother didn't just train with the sword. No, you see, Nathaniel was the second son. The spare, not the heir, given nothing he couldn't grasp for himself. And so he trained with whatever he could get his grubby little mitts on. Yesterday it had been an awful axe. Today it was those damnable dancing daggers. Tomorrow he suspected it would be a spear, one of Dornish make. Cersei had seen him drilling with it. A fist slammed into his side, shattering his thoughts and rattling his ribs through the armor he wore. "Pay attention, brother," he sighed. "I am Nathaniel," his sibling scowled. "Don't like being called that. It's just a name, your name," he tutted back with a grin, easy burden to bear. Nathaniel must have took issue with it because he crashed into him like a falling star. A knee surged up into his groin, rendering the world white and doubling him over. A hammer fist rang his blade like a bell. In came the daggers again as he staggered. Jaime tried to parry, only to see the feint too late. His beloved brother reversed course at the last instant and gave his face an open-palmed smack in return for that right hook he'd taken earlier. Jaime recoiled with a hiss. "Gods, you're a sharp little thing." he muttered, rubbing his aching cheek. Daggers in the dark won't get you everywhere, brother. I disagree. Naruto grinned, slid them up his sleeves, eliciting a brief lull in their little duel. They've got me precisely where I want to be. As for you, he was still speaking when he whirled. A boot swept Jamie's legs and knocked him to the ground. He landed hard on his back. The moment he did it, Naruto jumped him. Twin daggers crossed over his throat. Time to yield, bit brother. Another loss to his little brother, how galling. I give. Nathaniel Naruto grinned down at him, hopped off his chest, and offered his hand. James clasped it with his right and let himself be hauled upright. Stronger than he looked, this little brother of his. He stood a good head taller than him, yet his sibling hoisted him to his feet with ease. There were times when he worried about his brother. Naruto was more than he appeared. Most of Casterly Rock knew that, but it was tiny, subtle displays like this that truly concerned him. He didn't make any secret of his strength and speed, nor his healing touch. Not these days. Second son though he might be, he couldn't help but wonder what his little brother would be like when he was older. Naruto touched a hand to his forehead and grimaced. James saw it and guided him down to a stone bench. Headaches again? A little. He clicked his tongue in mild irritation. Feels almost familiar. James turned a keen eye turned on him. Don't go mad on me now, whatever would I do without you? A blonde brow quirked. Live a better life, don't say such things. HRMPH, his brother grunted. Enough about me, you need to pay attention in a fight, see? Naruto tapped a dagger to his wrist. That's you disarmed, literally. What would you do if you lost this hand? I expect I'd have to learn to use my left. An elbow ribbed him good and proper. You're shit with your left, honest to a fault. A wry chuckle escaped him. You really don't fight with honor, do you? Honor doesn't win wars, it gets men killed. Victory is all that matters. The faint sound of clapping filled the yard. Well said. Jamie whirled and Naruto with him. Much to his surprise, he found their Lord Father waiting for them. He looked pleased, almost grimly so, and it was that expression that set off all manner of bells in James' head. When did you arrive? Just this morning. Father approached them, hands clasped before him. Your mother's due to give birth any day now. Did you think I would miss it? He had thought so, yes. The king was ... increasingly erratic these days. Father was seldom the sort to smile when he returned from the capital, but he did sometimes. Jamie had learned to savor those rare moments. Tywin Lannister almost looked human when he smiled. Almost. Theirs was a powerful house, but they did not rule, no, that right fell to the dragons, the Targaryens, and a king who may or may not be mad. Just as well. Jamie had no interest in the Iron Throne. He knew well the rules of succession. Casterly Rock would be his one day. Cersei would likely marry Rhaegar and Nathaniel. Well, Father would doubtlessly try to throw him at some crazed Targaryen wench down the line, or maybe some other highborn lady whenever one came of age. His brother had complained rather loudly about that. He looked fit to complain again right now, given the letter Father was now dangling before him. James squinted at it, curious. He recognized that seal. Didn't it come from this? Came from the capital, Father answered for him. For you. Nathaniel perked up and reached for it. Tywin tugged it out of his reach. I thought we had quashed this folly of yours by now, Nathaniel. You play a dangerous game. James perked up. Girl, Father had taken him to King's Landing a fortnight past. Had his little brother met someone? Who then? It didn't make a lick of sense. The only family of any real import in the capital were the Targaryens and... Gods be good. Surely his little brother wasn't that foolish. How would you know? Naruto adopted a rather mulish expression. If you just give her a chance, you'd see she's suffering. You are my son. Tywin spoke over him, appearing to loom larger every moment. A Lannister. When you marry, it will be for the benefit of this family, not yourself, and certainly not for a foolish scheme such as this. He spun on one heel, eyed a nearby brazier, then flung the tiny scroll into it, heedless of the outraged noise Naruto made. You will cease this foolish pursuit, and we will speak no more of this. His eyes could have made a Northman shiver in that instant. Do you understand? Father, James forced himself to rally. He had to know. Who was that letter from? ... It matters not, he said at length. Family is everything, and I will not allow either of you to drag our name through the mud. Naruto scoffed at him. With a family like this, who needs enemies? Careful now, boy, I enjoy your wit, but you tread on thin ice. Naruto lifted his chin to stare Father down. Oh dear, James knew that look, and it was nothing good. This could only end poorly. A distant scream pierced the tension. Cersei came hurtling around the corner, face absolutely ashen. Mother's gone into labor. In an instant, any such thoughts of the future courtships were summarily forgotten. Nathaniel didn't walk, he all but sprinted past Cersei, practically bowling her over as he raced for the bedchamber. Jaime followed a more sedate pace. What was the rush? The babe would come when it came. Would it be a girl, her wondered? Or were they to have another brother? When her labors began, Joanna Lannister, she welcomed them wholeheartedly. It was as a difficult birth, one that nearly killed her. All to bring a dwarf into the world. With his birth, she became possessed of the belief that her middle son wasn't normal. Naruto didn't left her side the entire time. Whatever he'd done had healed her, prevented her from bleeding out. Most mothers would have balked at such a display. Not Joanna. She'd sworn to love all her children, and she resolved to love this one, imperfections and all. And so she named their newest son Tyrion. She'd never forget the look on Tywin's face when he saw him, nor Jaime or Cersei or Naruto. "Hello, Tyrion." She'd always remember the way her second son crooned over the mewling babe in her arms. "Welcome to the world." The Martells came to Castery Rock soon after Tyrion's birth. Oberyn Martell and his sister Elia Martell, to be precise. By the dazed look in their eyes, Naruto knew it was their first time away from Dorne, and neither brother nor sister seemed overmuch fond of anything. Not the food, not the weather, not their strange accents, nothing. Not even their own Lord Father who brought them here in the first place. He couldn't blame them. The man had gone off to discuss business with Tywin and left the four of them here in the sitting room to bond, as he put it, which left them at a bit of an impasse, you see. They were only children. No one knew what to do, or say, for that matter, well, he did, but he'd prefer not to show his hand just yet. In truth, he found himself empathizing with the plight of the wayward Martell siblings. They looked lost and wholly out of their depth. He'd never been to Dorne, but he expected his reaction would be much the same if he visited their kingdom. King's Landing was, crowded to be sure, yet it was nothing compared to the searing heat of the real South. Jaime leaned over to whisper in his ear. "They certainly seem friendly." He elbowed his older brother in the ribs. "Be nice." "Where's Cersei?" "With Mother," came the sigh. "Where else would she be?" Naruto winced despite his best efforts, of course. Cersei disdained such matters. Anyone who isn't us is an enemy, as she was often so fond of saying. She'd only grown more terse these past few weeks. Joanna's survival had been a near thing during Tyrion's birth, and she'd never truly gotten over that. Time mended all wounds, but for now her pain was still fresh. She would take a while to adjust. Until then, he'd need to keep an eye on her. And Tyrion. He didn't think she might be that stupid, but her emotions always ran hot where family was concerned. Which left him and Jaime to deal with this. So be it. If no one would make the first move, he supposed it fell to him. "I'm gonna talk to them." Jaime didn't bother to hide his grin. "Father won't like that." Oh yes, he could imagine him saying something to that effect. "I didn't raise you to be this foolish." Tywin Lannister was a force to be reckoned with, at home or abroad, even with his family. But what he didn't know wouldn't hurt him. He caught the Martell siblings staring his way, plastered a winning smile across his face, and radiating confidence, walking their way. Jaime followed and let him do the talking, bless his soul. "Welcome to the Rock." He offered his right hand. "I'm Nathaniel." Oberyn and Elia exchanged a glance between themselves. Naruto kept smiling. These days it was all too easy to slip into the guise of Nathaniel Lannister rather than Naruto Uzumaki. Sometimes he made a game of it, seeing how long he could keep up the act and charm those around him. Oh, he loved his new family, make no mistake, but it was still a bit of a lurch sometimes when he thought of it. The irony wasn't lost on him. In his first life he'd been born to nothing. He'd clawed his way to the top with nothing but grit. Naruto Uzumaki became powerful, but he didn't have true power or influence until nearly the end. Now as Nathaniel Lannister, son of Tywin Lannister, he had wealth, influence, power. Son to the second most powerful man in all of Westeros, while retaining nearly all of his abilities from his first life. The world was his oyster. It wasn't quite the same. He missed Kurama, missed him more than words. Surely he was out there somewhere in this brave new world. He had to be. And he would find him a stray breeze tugged at his face, drawing him back to the present. Someone had clasped his hand while he was lost in his head. Oberyn, no doubt. Tywin said was a bold one. ... It is a great pleasure to finally meet you, my lord. A smooth voice captured his ears. Father speaks highly of you. Heat shot up Naruto's neck, burning into his cheeks. That voice did not belong Oberyn. Sure enough, glanced to the right and found Jaime had led him away, striking up a conversation with him. Traitor. He should have known. He didn't like talking to any girl that wasn't Cersei. Inevitably, his gaze was drawn back to Elia Martell. He'd once heard Joanna describe her as, and he quoted, A gentle, good, and gracious girl, but also frail due to her delicate health, kind and clever with a sweet wit. Looking at her now, he could see that much. She was a pretty girl. Bright, bemused eyes beamed back at him from a dark face framed by curtains of ebony black curls. Her smile held none of Cersei's venom, and that pale yellow dress flattered her. More than that, she seemed nice. Not timid and quite willing to chew him out if he wronged her somehow. Right, protocol. He raised their hands, fingers still intertwined, and kissed her knuckles. My lady. Oh, Elia Martell did not titter and flush, but rather laughed and arched a dark brow at him. Is that how you Westerlanders greet a Dornish woman? It is how a proper lord greets a beautiful lady, yes. He couldn't quite hide the wry smile behind his retort. Less so when she snorted, sassy girl. He liked her already. HMM. Oberyn's sister lowered her hand, but didn't let go of his and wound up tugging his arm down with hers in the process as her eyes flitted up to meet his. We've heard curious things about you in the South, Nathaniel Lannister. You live up to your reputation, I'll give you that. He squeezed her hand. Walk with me? I believe I shall. Elia accepted with good grace, allowing him to lead her, pausing only to crane her neck and look back. Oberyn, can I trust you to behave yourself while I'm gone? Her brother snorted. I could say the same of you, dear sister. She rolled her eyes. Do you have anything like the water gardens here? Water gardens? He chuckled softly as they walked. Now we don't have one of those, but we do have a stone garden. The Dornish woman blinked at him. How can a garden be made of stone? Naruto chuckled a little at her innocence. Let me show you. Down through the rock he led her, into the very bowels of the keep. Elia proved herself both an amiable and inquisitive guest, filling the silence between them with questions as they continued their descent. At times it seemed she wanted to know everything. Did they still have lions in the keep? Was Lan the Clever real? Had they found Brightror, their ancestral Valyrian steel blade, yet? It made for good conversation, and he reveled in the chance to talk with someone new for the first time in months. In nearly no time at all, they reached their destination. Here we are. Naruto swept an arm out before himself. Take a look. The stone garden was a godswood, nestled in a cave within the rock. It contained a twisted old weirwood, whose tangled roots have almost filled the cave, choking out all other growth. The face carved within had its eyes open, unlike some, and those eyes almost seemed to stare their way now, observing the two of them. Elia clutched at his hand, shivered a little. He didn't. He found the old tree comforting. It always felt like something was watching over him here, protecting him. He liked to come to this place when he was alone. It brought him small semblance of peace when his heart was troubled. Sometimes Mother joined him. Cersei had on occasion before Tyrion was born. She'd prayed for a sister. Instead, she got a deformed little brother that nearly killed her mother, a sibling she seemed to hate with all her heart. So that's a weirwood tree? He looked her way. You don't have them in Dorne? We do not. Father says they cannot grow in the hot climate. What brings you this far west? Not that I'm complaining, mind you. Father decided it was high time Oberyn, and I saw the other 6 kingdoms. Elia flicked a strand of dark hair out her eyes. Casterly Rock is merely the third one stop of many. We've already been to both Storm's End and Highgarden. Realization broke like the dawn over the narrow sea. Traveling this far meant one of two things. Either their father genuinely wished for Elia and Oberyn to see the rest of the continent, or, and this was far more likely, they were touring the keeps of each kingdom for a far simpler reason. To get a better look at the sons and daughters of Westeros. That meant marriage pacts, both for Oberyn and Elia alike. Was that why they were here, to find paramours? Were they after Jaime? It made a twisted sort of sense, really. Jaime was heir to Casterly Rock and future Warden of the West. Not him. Why would anyone care about him? A second son was only ever a spare, after all. He shook the ugly thought off and smiled at Elia. And how do you like the kingdom so far? In the case of Storm's End, she made a face. Wet. Highgarden was greener, but Oberyn and I were not accustomed to the climate. A thought occurred to him. He pounced upon it. Well, if you dislike them, I wouldn't recommend King's Landing, then. The Princess of Dorne tilted her head just so. And why not? It smells of shit and 500,000 many people crammed in a small place. He rolled his shoulders in a shrug. To say nothing of the criminals, it's no place to start a family, let alone raise children. Elia blanched. I'll keep that in mind. It'll only get colder as you go north, you know. That earned him a cross look. We have not been to Winterfell yet. I do not think we will be. There is nothing for us there but snow and ice. Ah, yes, he'd heard tales of the illustrious Starks. Grim bunch they were, had to be up there. Those Northerners didn't have time to play the game. There wasn't any time for it. They were far too focused on survival. He almost envied them at times. A life almost free from endless politicking and dickering about at court. It sounded far simpler than the life he currently led. Another thought nagged at him. Is that only reason you came here? Well, Elia confessed, we were hoping to see the imp while we were here in the West. His blood ran cold. Imp, everyone's raving about your little brother. She barreled on, heedless of his sudden stillness. They say he's a monster, that he has claws and scales. His face closed down, all traces of emotions draining away. And what do you think? That I wish to see for myself? She huffed. Naruto opened his mouth to retort. A whisper caressed his ear. Approach, it felt like. How could he describe it? A gentle breeze, warm wind caressing his very soul, both pleasant and unpleasant at the same time. He spun, startled by the sudden voice. Did you hear that? Elia frowned at him, utterly baffled. I heard nothing. He shook his head. I thought I heard a voice. Do not ignore this, son of fire. There it was again, something tickled his senses. Inexorably his gaze was drawn to the weirwood tree. Approach! The voice or voices were all but a command now. You are needed. Absurd. Trees didn't whisper, they certainly didn't talk. Did they? He edged close to the weirwood, touched a hand to the pale, scarred bark. In an instant he found himself falling. He opened his eyes and saw. It was like looking into a cracked mirror. He saw and heard countless things at once, flashes of things that were and was, events that should and should not be. And he heard 3 words. Burn them all. Ares Targaryen shrieked of traitors, and in turncoats from the Iron Throne. A lion broke bread with a snake and wolf, and a dragon, while King's Landing erupted in a plume of wildfire. A scarlet dragon egg was pressed into someone's hands. A great shadow fell over the capital. Kurama's laughter rang in his head. He heard the last gasps of a dying woman, the awful ring of steel striking steel amidst the screams of dying men. The wail of terrified children. Saw a sword plunged through the mad king's chest. Another swept in from the side, took his head clean off at the shoulders and sent it spinning across the floor. Burn them all. Someone climbed over the mad king's corpses, lowered themselves onto the Iron Throne and sat there. He couldn't see their face. It was like looking at a shadow. The more he tried to focus, the more it seemed to shift and writhe before his eyes. A crown was placed upon the shadows. Men and women knelt before him as one. Ice crept in from the north, inching toward the capital. Dead men marched on living. They were met by light and dragons. And there, rising above it all, those damnable 3 words haunted him still. Burn them all. Nathaniel! Someone grabbed him by the shoulder and yanked. Hard. Snap out of it. Reality snapped back like a rubber band. Naruto, he noticed Jaime and Oberyn standing nearby with a distraught Elia. His brother was gripping his left arm, fingers biting down hard enough to cause pain. When had they caught up to them, and why did he look so pale? What's wrong? He squinted their way, not understanding why they all looked so distressed. Why the long faces? You've been staring at the weirwood for the last hour. Jaime released his arm. Elia had to come find us. What's gotten into you? Had he? How did he explain what he'd just seen? Did he even dare speak of it? They'd think him mad. The world already had one madman too many. A cursory glance at Elia only made him all the more concerned. Her fanned face looked pale indeed, her eyes terribly wide. She was holding his hand again, but she'd been holding his hand when he touched the tree, hadn't she? What had she seen? What indeed? Just daydreaming, I guess. He shook himself free, mustered a smile he didn't feel, and stifled a yawn with the back of his hand. Probably trained a little too much last night. Must have dozed off on my feet. Yes. Elia seized on the change of topic with gusto, grasping at it like the lifeline it was. Something had rattled her. He wondered what it was. I hear you're quite skilled with the spear. Jaime barked a laugh, all too eager to forget what he'd seen. Skilled, she says, that's putting it mildly. He nearly took my hand off yesterday. Kurama would have howled with laughter were he still within him. Naruto settled for his own, strained though it was. I'm good with daggers, too. His smile became a grin. The sword as well. Is that so? He must have caught Oberyn's attention now, because Elia's brother slung an arm around his shoulder and drew him his way with a sly smile all his own. Care to prove it? Ah, now they were speaking the same language. He squared his shoulders and returned his grin tenfold. Is that a challenge? Wouldn't want to hurt that pretty face of yours. A hand settled on his shoulder. Come now, you are the second son of your family, while I am merely the third of mine. I'm sure they won't mind. He quirked a blonde brow his way. They might mind when I knock you on your arse. This time, Jaime didn't bother to hide his laugh. Most little lordlings or ladies would have given up the goose then and there. Cut their losses and called it a day. Oberyn was not most. He was a prince of Dorne, perhaps even heir to Sunspear someday if he played his cards right. Any prince-to-be would be trained in combat. They must be, if only to defend themselves. And if Oberyn was offering him a duel, who was he to refuse? Real men let their fists doing the talking, or their weapons if they were particularly keen on them. You might not be so fortunate. Elia clicked her tongue at him. Oberyn, what? He tutted at her. I merely wish to see if your dear lion has claws, she scoffed. He isn't my dear anything little brother. Then why are you still holding his hand, sister? Jaime chuckled. He has you there. Elia couldn't free her hand fast enough. Her face had gone an alarming shade of red. Naruto started laughing. It was easy to lose himself in the byplay, the back and forth, to forget what he'd seen when he touched the tree. But he couldn't, not completely. He didn't think he ever could, no matter how much he might wish otherwise. Found you? Cersei came rushing down the steps leading to the stone garden. She took one look at his distraught expression, realized something was wrong, and launched herself at him. Slim arms wrapped around his head and drew him close to her. For once, he found himself grateful for her presence. Her clinginess even. Strange as it might sound, he wanted to be held by someone in this instant. Cersei recognized that somehow that something was bothered him, and he allowed it, even if she was his sister. That gratitude faded when he saw Cersei's expression. His sister was smirking at Elia, wearing that insufferable little I know something that you don't grin he'd come to despise over the ears. It soured any lingering semblance of peace he might have felt. Why are you all hiding down here in the depths? She tutted at the Martells. Don't you want to see our baby brother? Of course we do, Lady Lannister, Oberyn replied. But we didn't know the way to the nursery. Well, now you shall. She released him, turned and beckoned as though she were the queen herself. Come this way. Naruto exchanged an uneasy look with Jaime. His brother shrugged helplessly. What else could he do? Up they went once more, retracing their steps, the journey made in silence. No one spoke. No one dared, if only because they dreaded what might lay in wait ahead. Soon enough, Cersei led them to the nursery. Mercifully, Naruto found no blood within. He could hear Tywin in his little crib. He immediately noted Joanna's absence, however. Where's mother? With the septa, she replied primly. Praying. His eyes narrowed. What are you up to? Nothing at all, brother of mine, she cooed. Still smiling, she turned to face the Martell siblings, grasping at the veil over. Look at him. She unveiled the crib. Behold our monster. Oberyn and Elia peered at him. The latter gasped, not in shock or horror, but sympathy. That's not a monster, that's a baby. Oberyn leaned in to get a better look and frowned. His head may be a bit large, his arms and legs are small, but he's not a monster. In that instant, Naruto knew he'd be lifelong friends with him, to the last of his days. If he'd called Tywin a monster, he would have decked him. It doesn't matter, Cersei sneered, heedless to their byplay. He nearly killed my mother. Everyone says he will die soon. I hope they're right. She reached in and pinched his nose shut, drawing a distressed cry from the poor babe. He should not have lived this long. Crack. Why did his hand hurt so much? Naruto looked down. Jaime gasped, and he saw why. His arm was extended, knuckles clenched into a fist. There was blood on his hands. He didn't remember moving, just a flash of anger. Cersei stumbled back, gaping girlishly at him as she clutched at her bloody nose. Little brother, you hit me, how dare you? Anger sparked again. His fist unclenched and his arm moved. Crack. Cersei recoiled, now clutching at the throbbing red handprint he'd left upon her right cheek. How dare I? How dare you? His words cracked out again like a whip. I'll do worse than that if you touch Tyrion again. Father will punish you, she shrieked. Just wait until I tell him. Go ahead, see if I care, spoiled sow. Out she stumbled. Jaime chased after with a rueful sigh. Naruto felt a brief bang of guilt and made to follow, if only for his brother's sake. My friend. Oberyn slung an arm around his shoulder, stopping him short. I think you and I will get along famously. Elia nodded her agreement and smiled sweetly at him. Naruto felt his heart skip a beat. Oh dear, he'd not planned for this. Tywin stared at his son from behind his desk. To his credit, Nathaniel didn't falter, nor had he protested when summoned. On the contrary, his second son impressed him. Rather than bow and beg for mercy as any normal child might, when faced with the wrath of his father, this surly boy raised his chin, set his face in a determined scowl, and matched him glare for glare. He'll need to watch that in the future. A tell like that gives him away. Nathaniel had a bad habit of doing such when threatened, squaring up his shoulders, planting his feet, and standing his ground, no matter the odds. Doubtless he'd gotten that fro his mother. Joanna wasn't afraid to give him a piece of her ind if need be, and neither was he. For if his lady wife was the sort fight a dragon to protect her children, then Nathaniel would happily slay one to keep Casterly Rock safe. He was stubborn with a good heart and the will to match. It was going to get him killed one of these days, but sitting here staring at one another wasn't going to get them anywhere. Tywin steepled his fingers in the silence. I understand you struck your sister. I did. May I ask why? Nathaniel clicked his tongue. You know why she was being a bitch. Well, this time Nathaniel broke the silence first. What's it to be then? Whipping, flogging. Are you going to take 2 of my fingers? By the 7, the boy was all jagged edges when he wanted to be. At times like these, Nathaniel seemed sharper beyond his years, an old man in a youngster's body. Nonsense, surely. Snarks and grumpkins, that sort of thing. He'd simply taken to his lessons better than most. Nathaniel still didn't budge. Tywin felt the ghost of a smile tug at the corner of his mouth. Nathaniel had a way of doing that to him, drawing a smirk out of him when few else could, but it didn't change what he'd done. Do you know why I'm angry? He began to drum his fingers against the desk, from smallest to large, one after the other. Because I struck Cersei. Tywin gave him a moment to think, and then no. No, his boy blinked, not quite comprehending his statement. No, Tywin replied, drawing out the word, you were well within your rights. I should have taken a firmer hand with her long ago. Your brother has been of no use on that front. With any luck, you slapped some sense into her today. And if I haven't, then you are free to take her to task again if she acts in such an unbecoming matter. The boy's brow furrowed. I could make her a better person, but if you're not angry about that, then why am I here? Now was as good a time for a lesson as any. Tell me, why do you believe you are here? Nathaniel squinted at him, frowned now. Because of the spectacle I made. Good. Tywin nearly leaped from his desk as he shouted the word. You're finally asking the right questions. I am cross with you not because you struck your sister, but because you did so before witnesses. A brief pause not to let the weight of his words sink. You made us appear weak before the Martell children, and although their father was thankfully not there to see, they've surely told him by now. She was pinching Tyrion's. Tywin held up a hand to forestall an argument. I am aware, Jaime told me. I didn't say your actions were unjustified, but you will not fight in public. Do you understand? Nathaniel hung his head and kicked at the floor. As you wish. Blast. He couldn't stand to see the boy, the one he'd begun to pin his hopes on, sulk like that. He tapped a finger against the desk. Come here. His son obeyed. What do you see? Nathaniel glanced to the map sprawled across his desk. Westeros, the 7 kingdoms, and, a moment of silence, Legacy's the future. Yes. He stabbed a finger down on Casterly Rock. There's a reason the name Lannister is remembered, not that of the Casterlys. It's the family name that lives on. Not your brother's personal glory, not Cersei's deluded notions of power, but family. Family is important. It is all that lives on. It must. It will. Nathaniel looked to him. Will it? Tywin spread his hands across the desk and leaned forward. Your brother wants to be a Kingsguard with no idea of what that horrid position entails. Your sister rails at anyone who dares to oppose her, all the while thinking herself more clever than anyone alive. And Tyrion is my brother. Nathaniel met his gaze evenly. And your son. That much he could not deny, no matter his deformity nor the danger he'd placed Joanna in. He is my son, if he lives. You think he won't? He shrugged. Dwarves have been known to die young, you know this. I do. Something dark passed through the boy's gaze, and I'll be watching over him to make sure he does live. He's family. HRRM. He understood that, at least. Perhaps there was hope for Nathaniel yet. Tywin took his hand from the map and brought it down on his son's shoulder. We must appear united, always. Do you understand? Nathaniel nodded. Someday you will marry and take a wife of your own. He paused, considered the matter for a moment, grappled with it, then spoke his heart's true desire. When the day comes that you do, seek out a good match. Find a partner that pleases you, someone with whom you can spend the rest of your life with, as I have. That will make all the difference in the years to come. And should you father any bastards? His boy stood a little straighter and clasped both hands behind his back. I'll see them looked after. As you should. If your brother does become a Kingsguard, you will be named my heir. Do you understand what that means? Another nod. I'll rule the rock after you die. You just might. Gods be good, at least he'd been blessed with one child that listened, which made it all the more important that he understand. You possess gifts not seen since the doom of Valyria. I would have you keep them secret, and if you cannot manage that, use them sparingly. Mulish defiance burned in the boy's gaze. Mother would have died without them. I know. Tywin fought down a shudder at the ghastly image his mind conjured. To even dwell on such a thing. No, he dare not. And I shall spend my entire life repaying the debt I owe you for her own, but you have enemies enough without making more. Pycelle already fears you, and he commands a great deal of influence among the Meisters. Here at last, a hint of Lannister anger burned through the boy's bright eyes. Dodgy old coot, I don't trust him. He's not half as senile as he claims to be. A cold joy awoke in Tywin's heart. No, he is not. He remains loyal to the Lannisters, but you would do well to mind your food and drink. I will. Silence stretched between them. Tywin let it linger for a moment longer, then chose another avenue of attack. Elia Martell, what do you think of her? Nathaniel wasn't stupid. He caught on at once. He knew what he was getting at. She's nice. Sweet but clever and not afraid to speak her mind. Interesting. He'd scorned suitors before. What had changed? You find her tolerable, then? We just met, Nathaniel retorted. She's wild, free, and exciting. Your mother thinks she would be a good match for you, Jaime would have argued. Cersei would have flew into a rage. Nathaniel did none of these things. He flushed yes, but he didn't burst into protests. He knew his duty to the family. I just met her today. He did not plea when he spoke. She seems all right. And you may yet meet her again if the gods are good. Thought you didn't believe in the gods. I didn't, until you were born. Nathaniel didn't rise to the bait. He understood. Their house was strong, but their foothold was still precarious outside of Westeros. Even after he'd eradicated the Rains and Tarbecks, many a noble lady had vied for his hand, for he was hand of the king. Joanna had bested them all. He'd slighted many a lord and lady when he chose to marry within the family. Old grudges like that tended to fester, growing rotten over time. He'd had the chance to choose. His children might not so fortunate. Nathaniel aside, Jaime and Cersei must marry for the sake of the family, for advantage. Even Tyrion, if he survived, would be expected to do such. Speaking of advantage. You are still writing to the Queen, I trust? Nathaniel slumped where stood. Uncle Kevin noticed, didn't he? He might have. Truth be told, Tywin was inordinately grateful for his younger brother's keen eye. In the weeks following Tyrion's difficult birth, he'd not spoken with Nathaniel on the matter of his secret correspondence. There had been much to do, and as he was set to return to his duties in King's Landing, Sunaries was demanding his return, practically howling for it, really. His mind was preoccupied with a great many tasks. But not Kevin. He hadn't failed to notice the ravens coming to and from the rock. A short while ago, he had told him to cease such frivolities. But now, the realm was beginning to tip. Who could say which way it would fall? Those harmless letters between him and Queen Rhaella might make all the difference in the years to come. And if there was a war? A mad idea entered Tywin's mind. He did not dismiss it, but instead shelved it away for later use. If that's your one vice, then so be it. He rounded the desk and planted a hand on his shoulder. But for God's sake, be careful and don't use your name when you write to her. Ares would be all too happy to tear you away from Casterly Rock. From your mother and I, Nathaniel wrinkled his nose. Don't want to be a Kingsguard, too many oaths. Tywin arched a pale brow. And if the king demands it, I'll tell him exactly what I think of him. Tywin actually laughed at that, a rare bark of genuine laughter that echoed through the keep. It surprised even him. He could imagine it now. Nathaniel already held a low opinion of Ares, one they both shared. For a single mad moment he saw it in his mind's eye. Mad king indeed! Nathaniel scoffed and spat at the feet of Ares. I've seen far worse things than you, Ares Targaryen horrors that would make you seem sane. You won't take me, you can't, you're weak. Good. He shook himself from the daydream and chuckled ruefully. Then more softly now, good. You've more sense in your head than Jaime. I'll say it again, you're blessed with abilities that few possess. You're blessed to belong to the most powerful family in the kingdoms, and you're still blessed with youth. And what are you going to do with these blessings, He tilted his head to regard him, one lion to another. Be a glorified bodyguard? Nathaniel shook his head. No, that's not me. Because you have ambition. Another nod. Tywin was seldom the sort to smile, save on rare occasions. He did so now. Ambition. Yes, that was the difference between Nathaniel and Jaime, between him and Cersei as well. Jaime wanted to swing a sword all his life because he was good at it. Nothing more. Cersei wanted to be his heir, but that could not happen, nor would it, because she was not always of sound mind. Nathaniel wasn't satisfied with being the second son. He wanted to rise in the world. With talents like his, he would. He was a true lion, and woe betide those who met his claws. Which is precisely why I need you to become the man you were always meant to be. Tywin squeezed his shoulder, and when that wasn't enough, drew him into a firm if brief embrace. Drawing back, he gave his head a pat. Not tomorrow, not next week now. You must be prepared should the worst happen. Now back to the matter of the Martell girl. The door to his chambers swept open. Joanna marched through, wearing a dangerous smile. Oh, dear. Tywin knew that smile. He knew it far too well. Dear husband, surely you weren't discussing our son's future without me. Were you? Tywin sank back into his seat. It was the wisest course of action, given her expression. You were resting. I did not wish to disturb you. No, you simply decided to mention the Martell girl on a lark. She cast a glance to a bemused Nathaniel and unbent enough to kiss the boy's head. Go check on your little brother, dear. She tousled his golden hair with one hand, smiling softly. Your father and I have much to discuss. Nathaniel needed no further prodding. He scampered out and slammed the door behind him. Tywin pinched the bridge of his nose. Was that necessary? I deemed it so. Joanna sat upon the desk and propped one leg up, exposing a pale thigh to his wanting eyes. So yes, quite necessary. His throat went dry. Gods, but she knew how to torment him. How are you feeling? Very much recovered, thanks to our son. She granted him a lascivious wink, and realization dawned. Exceptional, even, and lonely. Her gaze pierced his. You're leaving for King's Landing tomorrow. It was not a question. She always saw right through him. I am, and you wanted him out of the room. I did, she grinned. Now then, will you be taking your trousers off, or shall I do it for you? Tywin stood. Joanna caught him halfway, crushing her mouth against his. He swept an arm across the desk, clearing it, pressing her atop it. Far be it from him to refuse his lady wife. Naruto heard the noises behind the door and closed his ears to them. On one hand, he was hardly a stranger to that sort of thing in his first life. But still, these were his second parents, his new family. It was like imagining Minato and Kushina going at it. His mind recoiled. You not thinking about that. They're gonna give me another sibling at this rate, and wouldn't that be amusing? It was a strange thing indeed to be the middle child of 4, but he wasn't about to complain. He wouldn't mind another brother or sister. Maybe another girl would keep Cersei sane, or not. He really couldn't understand her sometimes. She'd shown a flash of kindness down in the stone garden, only to turn and be a vicious little witch minutes later. He'd figure her out one of these days, but not today. In the end, he left his new parents to it and let his feet carry him back to Tyrion's nursery. By some stroke of luck or fate, he didn't stumble into Cersei on the way. He expected the Septa was giving her a tongue lashing, or maybe Jaime was. Not, he decided. Not Jaime. He adored Cersei, and he didn't want to think of them right now. Quick steps carried him to his little brother's cradle. A pleased babble greeted his arrival. Good, he remembered him. Hey, little brother. He let the facade drop just for him and, how are we doing? A tiny hand pawed at one of his fingers but couldn't quite reach with those stubby arms. His heart lurched and he reached in the rest of the way, allowing the infant to grasp his hand. For some reason he found himself fiercely protective of him, dwarf or no. He hadn't asked to be born this way, just as he hadn't asked to be a Jinchuriki all those years ago. In a way, they were the same. Kurama would have scolded him for such soft sentiment, but there it was. Someone had to look out for the little guy. James should, but even if he wouldn't, he'd be here for him. His gaze strayed back to Tyrion. Could he heal him, fix his dwarfism? Did he dare try when he wasn't even a year old? Kurama had left him, but his healing talents remained. Shouldn't he use them? Was it not his duty to help those in need whenever they may need it? He reached a hand toward Tyrion but winced at the last instant. Doing so when his little brother was so young might well kill him outright. It would entail breaking bones and all other manner of unpleasantness, building his body. But he could help him later in life, even if only meant a few inches at a time, he would. There, he stroked his head. I won't let anyone hurt you. The door creaked open behind him, then shut again. He blew out a sigh. Jaime, that better be you? A knife slammed into his back. The world lurched. Naruto's sixth sense screamed, but he did not. Pain. He'd almost forgotten what it felt like after all this time. He could feel the blade buried to the hilt in his back, sliding against the muscle of his shoulder, but it all seemed dim somehow. He'd taken worse wounds than this. It barely tickled. He pivoted to face his attacker, a man clad in all black. Their face was strangely familiar. He blew out a sigh. Definitely not Jaime. His attacker drew another knife and lunged. Even in this weaker body of his reflexes and strength remained. He was no stranger to pain, and the dagger hadn't struck anything vital. He caught the hand trying to end his life by the wrist, stilling it an inch from his chest. At that angle it would have punched up into his ribs and pierced his heart. In his grasp, that blade didn't budge an inch. That vaguely familiar visage stared back at him, writ with confusion. Naruto squinted at it as he grappled with his attacker. Aha! He recognized that beard and those silver-gray eyes at long last. Marcus, one of the castle's servants. He'd known the man for years. Why do this? It didn't make a lick of sense, nor did the flicker of surprise in his eyes. They'd thought to kill him twice now, and both times they'd failed. A spark of anger flitted through their gaze, so he cut it out. In a single seamless movement he reached up, grabbed the dagger still sheathed in his shoulder, and tore it free. Then he slashed it across their face. That should have been the end of things. It wasn't. The face of Marcus fell away beneath his borrowed blade as they spun away. Literally peeled back and struck the floor to reveal another, one he didn't know. That face stared at him impassively. Naruto hissed out a breath. A faceless man. Were they here for Tywin? No, that didn't make sense. Any common cutthroat could try to kill him, so why send? Oh, he understood now. They were here for him, weren't they? Someone had put a price on his head. He almost felt flattered. A wry laugh escaped him as sweat beaded his brow. What's the going price for the son of Tywin Lannister these days? They didn't answer. Of course they didn't. He straightened up with a wince. Right then. Faceless men often worked in pairs, so where was a shadow dropped from the ceiling? He twisted aside at the last instant, grunting only a little as a sword kissed his right cheek, then snapped a kick into their ribs. His attacker hissed in pain and tumbled away, crashing into their comrade. The reprieve was brief, but he used it to his advantage and filled his lungs with air. Guards! His voice boomed out. Over here, guards! He looked back just in time to parry a dagger that would have taken his left eye. Sparks sprayed as steel struck steel. Over his shoulder he regarded the second attacker from before, a svelte woman even now rising from the floor. He didn't recognize her face. She hadn't killed one of the servants as her companion had. It changed nothing. Dead was dead, they would be soon. A boy is afraid. The girl intoned solemnly as she approached. A boy only makes his death more painful by resisting. Ah, this one was arrogant, he scoffed. Two could play that game. A girl should be terrified, she blinked. Of whom, you? Yes, Naruto didn't deign to say the word aloud. Why say anything to dead men and women? Pivoting, he parried a slash, ducked another, pulling upon the natural energy in the air as he did. He pulled hard. Blue orbs smoldered into gold, amber dust shimmering over his eyelids. Old, familiar strength rushed through him. His next punch shattered ribs and flayed flesh. The first faceless man stumbled back, clutching at his bloody side. A dagger swiped down on his arm and shattered. Do you have any idea who I am? He twirled his borrowed dagger over his knuckles. No, how could you? That's all right, you'll learn. A single step put him between them. The world dissolved into a mad whirlwind of motion. He parried a dagger with a wrist, caught the woman's blade in his free fist, and shattered it with a single squeeze. He snatched up one of the shards and punched backward, burying it in the belly of the first faceless man. It didn't go as deep as he would have liked. He felt his body growing sluggish. Poison. Of course they'd poisoned their blades. Poison hadn't killed him in the last life, and it wouldn't kill him in this. It barely even slowed him down now. An annoyed backhand drove the now weaponless girl away, giving him time to round on her wounded companion. They slashed at him. Weak, he slapped it aside. Now it ends. Naruto pounced on them and tackled them to the floor. He landed on their chest, all but mounting them, and grabbed their skull with both hands, plunged his fingers into their eye sockets. Hands scrabbled at his face, but he wouldn't be denied. From there he took a page from Gregor Clegan's book. He squeezed, the faceless man screamed and screamed and screamed, until his head burst like a ripe melon. Bloody viscera spattered his face. Covered in it, he stood and turned to face the woman who yet remained. She faltered. Huh. Faceless men didn't flinch. The girl must be new. What are you? To you, death, now run. He cast her dead comrade's blade down at her feet. Tell all of Bravos what you saw here today. Go now before I change my mind. She stepped back, knelt, laid her dagger at his feet, and flung herself out the nearest window. The door crashed open a heartbeat later. Gold eyes shimmered back into blue. Adrenaline failed him, and the poison caught up with him. Naruto tried to take a step, only for his legs to buckle. Someone caught him before he could dash his head against the stones. He looked up and saw Cersei's terrified face staring down at him. Oh, someone had cut her cheek. Don't die, she begged, shaking him hard. Please, you can't die. I'm not gonna die, he tried to say. I'm just damn sleepy. But words wouldn't come. He blacked out.